Hi, I'm George Hickox, and welcome to the exciting world of bird dog training. In Volume 1, Introduction to Guns and Birds, we're going to show you how to properly introduce your dog to birds and guns. And in Volume 2, we're going to cover basic obedience and electronic training. In Volume 3, we'll show you how to teach your dog to hunt in range and hold point. And in Volume 4, the advanced tape, we're going to cover backing, the conditioned retrieve, and show you how to teach your dog to be stay to wing and shot. Our objective in this 4-part series is to teach you how to better train your dog, to train a dog you'll be proud of, that'll hunt in range and look good on birds. So let's go to work and have some fun. Welcome to Volume 2 of Train the Pointing Dog series. I'm George Hickox, and in this video we're going to cover electronic collar training and basic obedience. So let's show you how we do it. Before we can train a dog, we need to know what a dog is. So what is a dog? A dog is a pack animal. What does that mean? It means that he must perceive you as leader of the pack, or he's going to do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. And that doesn't always work for us. We also need to understand that the dog is place-oriented. By place orientation, what I mean is he must be corrected or rewarded where the act occurred, also within close proximity of time. Studies by the military have shown that a dog must be corrected or rewarded within 1.3 seconds of the act. We're dealing in cause and effect. If he does this and it's what we want, he gets a reward. If he does this and it's not what we want, there's correction or pressure put on him. That correction or reward must take place at the place the act occurred within 1.3 seconds. So if you told your dog to come here and he didn't come here and you got him 5 seconds or 10 seconds later and corrected him, he wouldn't know why he was being corrected. And that'd be bad. That could lead to apprehension. He doesn't know when he's going to get corrected. If he knows why he's being corrected, he'll handle it. If he doesn't know why, he gets apprehensive, and an apprehensive dog is a very difficult dog to train. Your dog is more motivated to please himself than he is to please you, and we need to understand that. In today's world, we got the B.F. Skinner dog or the Walt Disney dog. The Walt Disney dog is not the dog we're training. The B.F. Skinner dog is the dog we're training. What I mean is we're going to be looking for a conditioned response, a dog that does it the same way every time. That means we need to know how he learns and how to enforce our commands, and also how to reward him. Because he's more motivated to please himself, that's going to be a conflict a lot of times for us. What I mean is, let's suppose that a pheasant flushes, and the dog is chasing it, but you want to train your dog to be steady to the flush and not chase. Well, he wants to chase. You don't want him to. So we need to know how he learns and how we're going to train him not to chase. But we need to understand that he wants to chase and he's motivated to please himself. So how are we going to do that? We need to take these premises to understand what he is and apply them. We're going to apply them in our basic obedience training first. In basic obedience, you do that in the yard. That does not take place in the field. We had our introductory field work where we introduced the dogs to guns and we introduced him to birds. At that stage, there's no commands given in the field because he doesn't know them. If your puppy's out running around and you say here, he doesn't know what here means. So what you have to do is teach him here in the yard. The reason that you do that in the yard and not in the field is that he's place-oriented and he learns by association. You don't want to take any risk that he didn't know why he got corrected in the field and he says, uh-oh, I'm in the field where there's birds and this is a bad place, and he becomes apprehensive. If he's apprehensive on birds, it's going to be very difficult to get him to be stay to wing and shot. Because he's motivated to please himself, we need to understand this whole pack relationship. If he doesn't perceive you as leader of the pack, he's going to constantly be challenging you. He has antennas up, and he's looking for a sign of weakness. How does he perceive sign of weaknesses? If you say the command over and over again, here, 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 and he doesn't have to do it, he doesn't respect you. So part of the training, he has to trust you, and you do that early on with this puppy. Take him to shopping centers. Let him see short people, tall people, women, children, everything early on so he doesn't become apprehensive. You're going to be taking your dog to new places, taking him hunting at the hunt club or in a field in South Dakota, and there's going to be other dogs and other people. If that makes him nervous, he's not going to give you his best effort. So in this development of the dog, we want to get him socialized, get him exposed to new things early on. Once he's confident, then that's when we do our basic obedience and our electronic collar training. How do we make him confident? By not correcting him when he didn't know why, and by giving him birds. There's nothing that will make your bird dog happier and more excited and more confident than chasing birds. Even though later we don't want the dog chasing birds, in the beginning we're going to let him chase because it develops an attitude. And in the early stages, that's what we need, is a bold and confident dog. So when we go to our basic obedience, the dog has already been chasing birds, has been in the field, he thinks life's great, he owns it, it's a bowl of cherries. And that's what we want, a bold, confident dog. Understanding that a dog learns by association is critical in order to be able to train a dog to a bragging right standard. Okay? Because if you correct a dog when he didn't know why, he will associate the correction with something that you might not have meant. For example, you're not going to put a bird down in the very beginning with a puppy and he started eating it, and you go out and discipline him for it. He wouldn't know necessarily that you're disciplining him because he was being hard-mouthed. He might say, oh, you don't want me to have anything to do with the bird. And then you start blinking birds, and that'd be a real bad place to be. If we've got a problem with birds or we've got a problem with guns, we can't have a gun dog. So this whole process of him learning by association is absolutely mandatory for you to understand. You can't correct or reward him if he doesn't know why. I've said that. Important. Okay, we got to correct or reward him at the place that the act occurred. That's important. He must associate. It's inevitable that he associates. He's always going to associate. So your job as a trainer is to steer him down the road to make sure that he makes the association you want him to make and not an association that you didn't want him to make. That brings us to show pups. Because we can't correct or reward him unless he knows why, what we're going to do first is show him what we expect. And I call that show pups. In show pups, we're not making him comply to the command. What we're doing is teaching him what the command means. So if we're doing kennel, in the very beginning, I'm going to say kennel, 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 and I'm going to be putting him in the kennel. I don't expect that he's going to go in the kennel when I say it. I'm simply showing him what it means. After he knows what it means, then I can make him do it, train him to do it, the first time he receives the command. And that's what we're looking for, a dog who responds to a command the first time that we give it. You can't get in trouble by doing too many show pups. What we're doing in show pups is ensuring that the dog understands what we're asking it to do. And that's going to eliminate a lot of pitfalls for us later when we put pressure on the dog for non-compliance. And we're going to have to put pressure on him for non-compliance because he's more motivated to please himself than he is to please us. So we're going to train him to do lots of things that he doesn't genetically want to do. He doesn't genetically want to not chase a bird. So in the show pup stage, you can't get in trouble by doing too many. Show pups, show pups, show pups. Once you leave show pups, then you're never going back. Because in show pups, we're saying the command more than once. Our objective was simply to teach him what the word meant. So in the kennel drill, for example, what I'm doing in the beginning in show pups is teaching him what the word kennel means. He has to know what kennel means before I can enforce non-compliance for not going in the kennel, to train him that he has to go in the kennel the first time I say it every single time. I'm looking for a conditioned response. I'm not looking for, oh, I don't feel like going in the kennel now, or I do feel like going in the kennel now. We're going to train him to go in the kennel every time that we give the command. And that's how we're going to do it with all our commands. Whatever our commands are that we're going to teach, we're going to eventually expect the dog to comply to the command or the cue the first time that he receives it. If I adopted a kid from Sweden, and I don't speak Swedish, I only speak English, and I told him to go to bed, and he didn't know what go to bed means, and I corrected him for not going to bed, at best we wouldn't have any trust. And we need that trust. So the dog has to know what the command means before we enforce it. Now that we understand the dog is a pack animal, and he must perceive you as leader of the pack, or he's going to do what he wants to do, when he wants to do it, we understand that he's place-oriented. We must correct or reward him at the place the act occurred within 1.3 seconds of the act, that the dog learns by association. It's inevitable that he associates, so we want to steer him down the road that he makes the associations that we want him to make. Things that are negative or positive are quickly imprinted. They're quickly imprinted because he learns by association. So now we're going to apply these things. We're going to go into our basic obedience and electronic collar training and apply these rules of what a dog is and how he learns. Our field work and our yard work are separate. In our field work, introductory field work, that's where we're going to introduce the dog to birds and introduce him to guns. There's no commands given in the field at that point because the dog doesn't respond to them. We don't want to teach him that there's something negative out in that field. We want that field to be great. Birds and guns are great. That's the place that his life is just super at that point. Our yard work takes place in the yard. That's where we're going to do our basic obedience. Okay, we're going to teach our commands and our electronic collar training in the yard first before we ever go to the field to apply them. Once you've got your introductory field work done and you've got your yard work done, then the two are going to merge. But it's a mistake to try to merge them until they're both complete. If the dog doesn't respond to a command in the yard, it's not realistic to expect him to respond to the command in the field. And if you correct him for not complying to the command in the field, you run the risk that he says this is a bad place, becomes apprehensive, and that can be a kiss of death to us when we get to birds and formal training of bird manners. In Show Pup, we're simply trying to teach the dog what the word kennel means. Kennel is the very first command we teach. We're going to teach the dog to go away from us first. Once he knows what kennel means, I'll go to the electric collar and I'll teach him how to turn the collar off by going in the kennel, and then I'll teach him that he can avoid stimulation altogether by responding to my command. In Show Pup, that can be going on in the yard at the same time your introductory field work was being done for birds and guns. We're not making him do it, we're just showing him. But when you go back to the field, don't be giving your commands that you were teaching in the yard until they're perfect in the yard. Atta boy. Kennel, 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 kennel. So in Show Pup, I can say the command over and over again because I'm simply teaching him what it means. Kennel, 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 kennel. He doesn't know, and he doesn't want to go in there. That's okay. He's going to get it after a while. Kennel, 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 kennel. Atta boy. Kennel, 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 kennel. Atta boy. So we're dealing in the pack here also because he doesn't want to go in, and I'm going to make him go in. I have him by the collar. I'm not going to hold him here and say the command and see if he goes in. I'm going to make him go in each time in the Show Pup stage. Kennel, 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 kennel. Atta boy. Kennel, 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 kennel. This isn't going to happen in one session or two sessions. We're going to do this over a couple of weeks of the Show Pups. You can't do too many Show Pups. Kennel, 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 kennel. Atta girl. Kennel, kennel, kennel. Atta girl. Kennel, kennel. Atta girl. Kennel. Atta girl. Kennel, kennel. Atta girl. Once the puppy knows what kennel means, and you know it knows what the command means, it's time to move on to the electronic collar. In the electronic collar, we're going to teach the dog to turn stimulation off, and then we're going to teach it to avoid it. Okay? Kennel, atta girl. Once you've done your Show Pups and the dog understands what kennel means, it's time to move on to electronic collar training. In the electronic collar training, what we're going to do is teach the dog that it can turn stimulation off. Once it learns it can turn it off, we're going to teach it that it can avoid it altogether. We're not using this by giving the command first, followed by stimulation, which may be the way that you knew about the electronic collar before. What we're going to do is turn the stimulation on before we say the word kennel. When the dog goes in the kennel or we get it in the kennel, the stimulation is going to turn off. What will happen is the kennel then will become a safe zone. When it's in the kennel, there's no stimulation. The dog knows what kennel means. We're going to turn the stimulation on before we say kennel. After enough consistent repetitions, the dog will expect, anticipate, associate that the command kennel is going to follow the stimulation. And we're going to get to the point that we could turn the stimulation on without giving the command, and the dog would go in the kennel to turn the stimulation off. At that point, the dog is doing it for itself. And that's important because the dog is highly motivated to please itself. So we're going to teach it in this step how to turn stimulation off. Remember that earlier, when your dog was running in the Introduction to Guns and Bird video, okay, that we already had the dog used to running with a collar on its belly and a collar on its neck. We had never done stimulation in the field. This is the first time that we've ever done stimulation. The first step that we have to do when we use electronic collar is find the stimulation level that the dog responds to. Every dog's not going to be the same. I like a collar that has a multitude of stimulation levels. On the DT system I'm using, there's 50 levels of stimulation. There's numbers of low level, and I'm a low level trainer. I want to get the dog to respond to the lowest level that the dog feels. So the first thing we'd do is we would find the level the dog feels. We turn the stimulation on level 1, maybe the dog was wagging its tail and it felt it and it stopped. Stimulation came on and maybe the dog went, what was that? We know it felt it. That's the level that we're going to be using all the way through, that eventually the dog will respond to that stimulation level. It doesn't mean that we won't go up in numbers in the early stages. What it does mean is that when we're finished and we've created a conditioned response, that when the dog feels the stimulation, the lowest level he feels, he's going to go in the kennel. When you put the electronic collar on the dog, put it up on the high side of the dog's neck, up close to the top. The reason for that is if you put it down the base of the neck, it's thicker down there, and the collar might slide up. That way, sometimes the prongs would be making contact and other times it wouldn't, and that would be inconsistent. If you put it on the high up here, it can't slide down, and the prongs will always make contact. Once I've found the dog's stimulation level, the lowest level it feels, I'm ready to move to teach it it can turn stimulation off by going in the kennel. I'm going to put the stimulation on, followed by the command kennel. When the dog is in the kennel, the stimulation will turn off. I have to get the dog in the kennel within 8 seconds because the stimulation will turn off in 8 seconds no matter how long I hold the button. If it turns off and the dog was fighting me, the dog will learn that fighting will turn it off. I want to teach it what turns it off is by going in the kennel. So I'm going to put the stimulation on and say the command. When I put the stimulation on, I will raise my hand. That way it will help you see the timing. Kennel, and I'm going to get her in. As soon as she's in, the stimulation goes off. Kennel. Where that's going to get us to is that when I put the stimulation on, kennel, after some amount of repetitions, the dog is going to go in the kennel on the stimulation. Kennel. There, so she went in the kennel on stimulation. I didn't give the command. So the dog knows how to turn stimulation off. Once it knows how to turn stimulation off, I'm going to leave the stimulation command stage, where I put the stimulation on before I gave the command. Once the dog knows to turn stimulation off, on this exercise, never again in the rest of the dog's life do I go back to stimulation before giving the command. What we've now done is we've made stimulation a command to go in the kennel. The dog's place oriented, the collar's on its neck. When it feels the stimulation around the kennel, it's going to go in the kennel because that's its safe zone, and it turns the stimulation off. Once the dog knows how to turn the stimulation off, we're going to teach it that it can avoid the stimulation altogether. It's much easier for the dog to learn it can avoid the stimulation if it first knew how to turn it off. So it's not guessing at how to solve its problem. It knows the stimulation comes on, there's a problem, it goes in the kennel, the stimulation comes off, it's solved its problem. Now we're going to teach it how to avoid a problem altogether by responding to our command the first time we give it. So now I'm going to flop it. I'm going to give the command kennel first, followed by stimulation. In the first couple of sessions, the stimulation must follow the word kennel, even if the dog was going in. Even if he was going to go in, the stimulation has to come on. Why? Because the dog learns by association. It's pre-cue, cue. So what we're going to make now is the kennel command have the same motivation to the dog to go in the kennel as the stimulation does. So we're going to say kennel followed by stimulation. After a number of repetitions of that, we're going to drop the stimulation altogether. When we drop the stimulation altogether, the dog will be going in the kennel the first time I say the command, and that's where we get style. Right now the dog learns how to solve its problem, but that doesn't create the style. When he has style is when he has no problem at all and responds to our command the first time we give it. Kennel. Atta girl. Kennel. Atta girl. Kennel. Atta girl. Kennel. Atta girl. They did it without stimulation that time. Atta girl. Now I can start getting upbeat to make this dog stylish. Kennel. Atta girl. Atta girl. All right. Kennel. That girl. Kennel. That girl. She's going in without the stimulation. That girl. Kennel. That girl. What a good girl. Kennel. That girl. What a good girl you are. All right, now we start making it a game. That girl. Kennel. That girl. That girl. Kennel. That girl. See, her tail's coming up. She's getting confident. She understands what's happening now. So what we've taught her is how to turn stimulation off, and now we're in the process of teaching her that if she responds to our command the first time we give it, she avoids the stimulation altogether, and she'll be motivated for herself to respond to our command. The kennel command is going to be the hardest thing that your dog ever has to learn. There's a number of things the dog is learning during this kennel command. One is learning to turn stimulation off itself. Then it's learning to avoid stimulation by responding to your command the first time you give it. The other thing it's learning is the concept of a safe zone. When the dog's in the kennel, there's no stimulation. Because he's place-oriented, it's easy for him to learn the concept of a safe zone. And we're going to use this safe zone throughout all of your training. We're going to use it for stay to wing and stay to shot, for backing, for holding point. When the dog is staying in one place, that's a safe zone. If he moves from that place that we didn't want him to, it's not a safe zone. So the concept of a safe zone is critical for us in teaching the dog to hold point, be stay to wing, be stay to shot, and to back. The other things that happen is the dog has learned that running away and sulking and fighting do not work. A dog has 3 escape hatches: fight, flight, and fakery. And it's going to try not to comply to your command because it's a pack animal. It has to learn that running away, sulking, and fighting do not work. In this case, there's only one thing that works: by going in the kennel the first time we give the command. So take your time, spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks making it good. Create style. Reward the dog when it does it. Pet it, praise it, give it a piece of hot dog. Anything. Make it upbeat with it. It's not going to be upbeat in the very beginning because it has to comply. It's a pack animal and it didn't want to do that. The very first command that we ever taught our dog was kennel. We taught kennel before we taught whoa, before we taught here. It's easier for the dog to understand kennel because it's an enclosed place. So it's easier to teach it. We want to make the learning easier. Because this stimulation, learning to turn stimulation off and then learning to avoid it, is what we're going to do for here, and it's what we're going to do for any other commands that we're working with. So the kennel is where we start. We don't start with here because if the dog is running out in the field and you said here, and he comes running back to you to turn stimulation off, you run the risk that you may be a safe zone and you can't get the dog to leave your side again. So we start with the kennel command. We're going to teach kennel, we're going to teach whoa, we're going to teach here, and we're going to teach heel. But we're going to do it in that order. It'll make it easier for the dog. If we teach heel before we teach whoa, the dog will keep trying to get back to us when we teach whoa. So now, once we've taught kennel, we'd be going to the whoa command. Teaching whoa, we're going to do a bunch of show pups first. So we're going to start off early with a puppy on a barrel. When they're 8, 10 weeks of age, we start putting them on the barrel. This dog's a little older than that. He's about a year of age. What we're doing is trying to teach him that we want his head up. If he moves his head, I just take a little piece of PVC piping, tap his head up. I want him to stand there looking proud later when he's on birds. So we'll get him standing here on whoa, on a barrel, but we're going to start with the puppies very early on in teaching whoa. So the puppy must know what whoa means before we would formally teach it to stop. Show pup. So that we'll end up with a dog on birds looking stylish. Once I have the dog stand on the barrel, looking proud, I'm ready to go to the ground. In order to go to the ground and teach it whoa, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a suitcase handle around the dog. Just like this, and then just tie an overhand knot. Like so. And what I have is a suitcase handle. I can pick the dog up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk along and I'm going to say whoa. The dog won't stay in that place. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it back at the place where he was when I commanded whoa. On the barrel, the dog couldn't move. There wasn't a concept of having to stop. That was staying stopped. Now what we're going to do is teach the dog that when he's moving and he hears the command whoa, he has to stop. Right. Whoa. All right. Whoa. That a girl. All right. Whoa. Whoa. Good girl. So what we're doing here is showing the dog that when it's moving and I say whoa, I want to stop. We're still in show pup. And we continue doing that till we're able to get the dog to stop as soon as we say whoa, before we go to the collar. Once I know the dog understands the concept of whoa, it's been on the barrel and it can stop on the ground. It's not going to respond with excellence, but it knows what whoa means. I'm now going to use the board. I'm going to walk him on the board. When I walk him on the board, I'm going to say whoa. After a number of repetitions, the dog's going to start stopping on the board even before I said whoa, because he associates, anticipates, expects I'm going to say whoa when he walks on the board, because I always did. So every time I walk him across the board, I would say whoa. Because the dog is place-oriented, he's going to make that work for himself. He'll understand in that place he's going to whoa, and we'll be able to make it work for us. Whoa. Good dog. Whoa. Dog comes off the board. I'm not going to say whoa again. I'm going to pick the dog up and put it back. I've already said whoa. I don't want to say it twice. I want to teach the dog it has to respond to my command the first time I give it. Now that's easier for the dog on the board than it was on the ground because it's place oriented. The dog identifies that as the place that it's supposed to stop. So you can make the board work for you and it will make it easier for the dog. Once the dog will stand on the board, you can walk away from it and it'll stay there. We're ready to use the electronic collar. Once the dog will stay on the board, when I walk away, it remains there. I'm ready to move to the electronic collar. When I go to the electronic collar, I'm going to put the collar on the dog's belly, so the prongs for stimulation are beneath. The reason for that is twofold. One, he's place oriented. This is his place for whoa. When he's out in the field later and we're doing electronic collar work on birds, all our hear work was done on the neck. All our whoa work was done on the belly. So if he was running around and he felt stimulation on the neck, he would think he was going to come to us. If he felt stimulation on the belly, he would whoa. So what we're going to do is actually make stimulation a cue or a command to whoa. The other reason is that if the bird is up here and the stimulation comes on from back here, the dog is much less likely to associate that the stimulation has anything to do with the bird which is in front of him. So now I'm going to teach this dog a second way to turn stimulation off. I'm going to teach him he can turn stimulation off by stopping. So I'm going to walk him around out in the grass. I'm going to put the stimulation on first and then say whoa. When he stops, the stimulation comes off. Once he will stop on stimulation without me saying whoa, I'm then ready to move to command stimulation, where I say whoa followed by stimulation. So I'm going to walk him out here, I'm going to put the stimulation on, and I'm going to say whoa until I see that he stops on the stimulation. Now the better the dog understands the whoa command, the easier this is going to be. Whoa. So he stopped on the whoa. But after a few repetitions of the stimulation coming on before the whoa, he will anticipate I'm going to say whoa after the stimulation. Right now, the stimulation coming on before the word whoa is a pre-cue, first, pre. So it comes on before. With enough consistent repetitions of the pre-cue, the stimulation, coming on before the cue, the word whoa, the dog will anticipate, associate that the stimulation means to stop, and he can turn it off by stopping himself. At that time, he's turning stimulation off for himself, not for me. Atta boy. Whoa. So that dog is stopping on stimulation now. The stimulation is actually a command or a cue to stop. Where we want to get our dog to is if he was running around out in the field, 50 yards away from you, and you turn the stimulation on, didn't say whoa, he would stop. That's your benchmark, when you can stop him on the stimulation alone out there in the field. Then, once you can do that, and he's running out in the field, you say whoa. If he didn't stop, stimulation would come on the belly, and the dog would stop until you can stop your dog in the field on the command whoa. If you can't stop your dog in the field on the command whoa, I think it's premature to say whoa on birds. So that's your benchmark. When you can stop him on whoa in the field, you're ready to teach your dog to hold point, which we'll cover in the next video. So once he knows to turn the stimulation off by stopping, I'm ready to flip it. I'm going to say whoa, followed by stimulation. Just as we did in kennel, in the initial stages, stimulation has to follow the word whoa for him to associate they mean the same thing. We're going to walk him along. We're going to say whoa, followed by stimulation. All right. Whoa. Stopping pretty quick now. Whoa. Now we're going to run him. We're going to say whoa. If he stops, we're going to praise him. If he doesn't stop, we're going to turn the stimulation on, because we know if we turn the stimulation on, he's stopping. Whoa. So that's a whoa with no stimulation. He's getting it. So now we move him out to the field where he's running way out. We'll be able to stop him on either stimulation or the word whoa. Whoa! Buddy Smith came up with this concept, the buddy stick, and it really works slick. A lot of times when you have a check cord on a dog, he's fighting you, he comes to you, you don't really have great control over him. This is a PVC piece of pipe about 6 feet long with a snap at the end of it. All we're going to do, snap it to the dog, we're going to walk him along, we're going to say whoa. A lot of times when you have a check cord on the dog and you tell him whoa, he tries to come to you, then you have to pick him up and put him back. With the buddy stick, we can stop him from coming to us. So I'll show you how it works. It also works great for teaching here. All right. Whoa. If the dog were trying to come to me, I just push him back. Atta boy. Whoa. So now I can be in front of him, and if I say here, 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 whoa, I can stop him right there. Here, 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 whoa. Once you can stop the dog on the ground, all right, whoa, and he stops on the ground, walk away from him, he'll stay there, then I can go to the board. Atta boy. Whoa. If I pull on it and he were to come off the board, I just push him back. So you have absolute control with it. And in a lot of ways, it's much better than a check cord to do your yard work with. First stage of teaching anything is show pup. So in here, our first stage would be show pup, showing him what it means. What I'm going to do is say here, here, over and over again as I pull him to me, showing him what it means. Here, 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 atta boy. Here, 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 atta boy. Here, 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 atta boy. Here, 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 atta boy. All right, puppy. Here, 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 here. Atta boy. Good boy. Here, 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 here. Atta boy. Here, here, here. Atta boy. Here. Atta boy. Once you've taught whoa and you've done your show pups on here, it's time to formally teach your dog to respond to the command here. What we're going to do is we're going to turn the stimulation on, say here, and pull the dog to us. When the dog comes to us, the stimulation goes off and we'll be a safe zone. Once the dog knows how to turn the stimulation off itself, which I'll know when I put the stimulation on, the dog comes to me even though I didn't say here, I'm ready to move where I say here, followed by stimulation for the first couple of times. Once that's done, then I say here. If the dog comes to me, atta girl. If the dog doesn't come to me, the stimulation comes on. If you've done your collar conditioning well on your kennel and your whoa work, teaching here will only take you 5 minutes out of your life. There you go. So what we're going to do is I'll put the stimulation on here, pull her to me. I become a safe zone. Here, pull her to me. Here, pull her to me. Okay, that time she came on the stimulation alone, so I know that she knows how to turn the stimulation off. I never go back to stimulation command ever again in this dog's life on the here command. I'm now going to here, followed by stimulation. Here, stimulation. Pull her to me, that a girl. Now, like in the other commands, I'm not going to get style while I'm still using the stimulation, but what I am going to get is compliance. I'm going to get style when the dog responds to the here command with no stimulation and I start getting upbeat. Here. Atta girl! Good girl! And we just keep that up. We go out to the field now and we're ready to say here. Don't say too many heres in the field. Otherwise the dog will get sticky and will stay by your side. But when you do say here, you're able to reinforce it with the electronic collar down. Atta girl. Atta girl! All right! Here! Atta girl. What a good girl. What a good girl you are. All right. All right. Here. Atta girl. All right. Here. Atta girl. What a good girl you are. Heel is the last of our yard training commands that we teach. Basic obedience is going to be kennel, whoa, here, and heel in that order. So the very last one we're going to teach is heel. Heel, like all the other ones, starts with show pup. Show the dog what heel means. Heel, heel, heel. We just keep pulling him back. Heel, 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 and show him what it means. Once he knows what it means, we're going to go heel, followed by stimulation, pull him to our knee. When he's by our knee, the stimulation would turn off, and that's a safe zone. It's the only one of the basic obedience commands that I don't do stimulation command first. So there's only 3 commands that I do stimulation command with. One of them is going away from us, which is kennel. The other one is stopping, which is whoa. And the other one is a recall, which we use here. There's nothing you're going to ask your dog to do as a bird dog in the field that's not based on going away from you, stopping, or coming back. So those are the only 3 that I make the stimulation, the cue, or the command to respond to that act. So in heel, I'm just going to show him what heel means, say heel, put the stimulation on, pull him back to my knee. When he's by my knee is the safe zone. And heel will only take you a couple minutes to teach him. Heel, 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 heel. Stimulation comes on until he's by my knee. Heel, 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 heel. Stimulation comes on until he's by my knee. Heel. Attaboy. Heel. 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 Whoa. That's how you teach heel. That's the first time he's had it. It'll take you a few sessions, but as he starts heeling and you get upbeat, attaboy, letting him know he's doing good, it won't take you very long. Once you've done your here, teaching heel is very simple. Once you've finished your basic obedience and your collar conditioning, you're going to have a bolder, more compliant dog, a happier dog. He's not going to look happy during all stages of basic obedience. The more spoiled he's been in the past, the more he's been able to get away with stuff, the more he's going to pout and challenge the commands. But once you finish it and you've gone through stimulation command to command stimulation, and you've taught the dog to kennel, to whoa, and to hear, he's going to be in a different pack now. He's going to perceive you as leader of the pack, and that's what we want. When you finish your yard training, then you're able to put your commands in the field. But if he won't do it in the yard, let's don't put him in the field.